actually. Okay, guys, welcome to this week's Wealth Creation Show. I'm Jim Parker, and we've got Richard Cook today, and we've also got Ben, the business and mindset mentor. I think, you know why I've got this on today, and we're going to talk about this. This is the top 10 tips for success. Now, most people would think, wait a minute, we're not talking about money today. But the reality is, it's not all about money. It's what you do and how you think will determine how much wealth you will attract. And that's why it's a wealth creation show. Clues in the name, if that makes sense. So wealth creation show. Ben, what is this? What's wealth creation to you?
Wealth creation to me is building freedom for yourself and your future self to protect yourself. That's what wealth is to me.
Yeah, perfect. Richard, what about yourself?
Yeah, I think in order to build and create wealth and create this machine that's going to do that, it needs to revolve around you and how you operate and your mindset and things. And I think that's a lot of what we covered today. How to program yourself.
Create that machine. You've obviously got big plans in your mind. It's like this is all going to fit in this big massive machine. Could I dare say the word megalomaniac applies to you, Richard?
Possibly.
So a couple of good afternoons here. Good afternoon, Andrea. Any questions, please feel free to ask. Show some love, guys. Hit that love button, hit that like button, and share and tag other people as well if you can. And Perry as well, good afternoon to you as well from us.
Afternoon, guys.
We're going to dive straight into this. There's no point in talking about news and stuff like that. Let's just talk about the top 10 tips for success. And the first one on my list is the self-development. It's the key to everything, isn't it? It's the key to everything. It's this learning new skills. It's developing yourself. I always say self-development. Why is that so important? Well, it's because if you were successful at what you did already or what you want to do, you would already know what you knew, so there'd be no point in developing yourself any further. But you are a product of the way you've thought right now up to this point in time and the successes and failures you've had before. Therefore, you have to learn something completely different to get to that next step. Is that an accurate way of possibly saying why you should be self-developing yourself? Ben?
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah. What's your thoughts about self-development? I mean, what type of things would you go for in terms, what would you give people advice for to develop in?
Yeah, I think as you spoke about at the beginning, although this is a wealth creation show and anything to do with business, I always think about mindset first. And a quote that's good, it's a good quote to summarize personal development and why it affects our wealth is your income comes first before your income can't overtake yourself. So when you look after your self-development, then your income increases usually. So Jim Rohn talks about work harder on yourself than you do on your job.
Yeah.
And that really stuck with me. And I dug deep into that. And that's what I would say a really good outcome of what self-development does in your results.
Most people don't work harder on themselves than do their job, though, do they? They don't work as hard. They don't have that. And do you think that's a product of the environment we're in?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say, it's kind of like, for me, that was an aha moment. I heard that and I went, right, I see what I'm doing wrong now. Yeah. So I think, like you're saying, it is the environment, because there's not all these people coming around and telling you work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Everyone's just telling you to work harder and show up every day. And it's until you get that person or realization from your own observations where you have a paradigm shift and you change your whole understanding and then your behavior.
Yeah. Richard, what about yourself? I mean, where were you? I mean, when you think about it, Richard, you joined me from college effectively.
Yeah.
And now 10 years later, you're the financial director. How the hell did that happen?
I know.
Was that self-development?
Yeah, and that journey for me, I mean, continually building my skills and things as a letting agent and within the company and things, it's a lot of education and things to make sure that I was knowledgeable, really confident in what I was doing and my role as the lettings director and things as well. I think in recent years I've realised that in order to be the best I can be at what I do, I need to look after myself. And even when that comes down to things like you say, mindset and exercise and the way you eat and things like that have such a profound effect on how you operate as a person. And I've noticed a lot of changes in myself as I've concentrated on that as well as obviously educating myself to be the best knowledgeable and lettings and things as well. But yeah, so I think a balance of them allows you to be the best person or the best version of what you're trying to
be. Ben, this is one for you. What about all these courses you have? I mean, some of these courses are astronomical numbers, like, you know, £4,000 and £5,000 to go on a course. Is that an advisable thing to do, or can you start at a different level if you're just starting off? Do you need to go on things like that, or what's your thoughts on that?
I think courses, workshops that I've invested in, like I've invested hundreds of thousands into my head through things that way, conferences. So the good thing about in-person events and workshops is you network with people who have invested a lot of money. So actually you end up spending a lot of time with people who have the money to invest. So sometimes it is advisable to get around and rub shoulders with people who can afford expensive events and go into a bit of debt to sort of get ahead. So you're kind of reaching up that way. So I found that that's worked quite well for me. I went backwards by spending a lot on my personal development, but it's launched me forward by being around the right people and also learning from the best.
Yeah, and I would agree with that wholeheartedly. You know, I've done exactly the same thing over the years. You don't know what you don't know, and it's the people that are in a better position, wealthier in terms of that. It's the whole thing about if you want to be like if you want what someone else has got, you've got to learn what they did, and that's the mentality. So the classic example of that is, well, we talked about in our show when we did it together, Ben, about Richard Branson, about the fact that what he had built from scratch, and how does a dropout student, more or less, you know, go on to build such a big empire, and that mindset to do that. And that's why I've read all these books, because I kind of thought there's got to be something in there that will rub off on me. And literally, it's $15.99 for a book. And then you get that one wee snippet of information that's going to accelerate you just that one wee bit more. That's why I think self-development is so essential. We talked about again was, you know, probably the books you read to self-develop, the functions you go to self-development. How important is a mentor, Ben? Is it key? I mean, I think it's important.
Yeah, I never had a mentor for a long time, but I realized my dad has been a big mentor figure in my life throughout. And my dad's been a lot of steps ahead of me. He's always kind of been switched on from when he was like 12. And I wouldn't say I developed the same way. I took till I was about 25 before I really changed into
kind of
an
like
entrepreneur.
Me. Yeah.
So
kind of the same principle.
Yeah, it took a wee bit longer to recognize what my dad was trying to get into me and understand how to sort of exit the whole matrix and be work like the rich do and be smarter with how I spend my time. But yeah, I think having a mentor, which is one's been my dad, and then other ones have been based on my own, what I've been led to, reaching out to certain people. And I don't really think of myself as having one mentor. I think you have different mentors for different aspects of your life. So you can have like a financial mentor, a spiritual teacher, health, everything. So you don't really have to have one mentor, I realized. And I didn't have to just listen to my dad. So I started spending money to reach out to people to learn from other people who know more than you do in that area. And you're obviously going to jump forward in leaps and just trying to figure it all out through your own mistakes.
Yeah, Perry makes a good point here. She actually says mentors are huge in self-development. You drive your focus to ensure that you put 8% with 20% support from them. It really is. It really is. You know, you've got to. It does take effort, but I tell you what, self-development is probably the key essential. That's why it's at number one for me. I think the next one, which is the most important one, we again touched on this, Ben, and you'll probably agree with me, is be who you are. The key for there is everything. You know, what's your thoughts on that, Richard?
Yeah, I mean, definitely always remain true to yourself and be who you are. Like you were saying there, Ben, it's so important to surround yourself with the right people, and to have a mentor is really important. I'm lucky enough to have had yourself, Jam, obviously over the years, guiding me and been a great support and showed me quite a lot. And like we say, where did the last 10 plus years go? I mean, I think back everything and how I've developed and used that, but still remained who I am at the same time, but obviously just developed myself. It's amazing what has happened over the years when you look back on yourself and your own journey. And it's good that you've got the right people around you to help you do that. So, but yeah, always remember and stay kind of true to yourself, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I think personally, if you're not true to yourself, then you'll attract the wrong type of person. Yeah. And therefore, what's going to happen is you'll be out of line with them and you'll not see eye to eye with them. So eventually that relationship will not go any further forward, whether that's in business, whether that's personal, whether that's social, whatever that is that you've got, you have to align with the right people. So being authentic to yourself is obviously you're going to attract the right person, which will be similar to you, because it's the laws of attraction. But, you know, you attract like, really. People are constantly looking for other people like them. Hence the reason why on social media you get a lot of people back and forward, and then they agree with each other, disagree with each other, and they build up a profile or what we call a core group of people that they actually identify with. That then comes back to the self-development, Ben, and like what you were saying about the fact that you are a product of the people you go about with.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on be who you are then? I mean, is it something you've always had and you've always followed?
Yeah, I would say I definitely got disaligned with who I was for a little while and got into like being a businessman like too much, and then was kind of had an experience and then decided to go back to following my own intuition rather than just listening to authorities, people who I seen as like authorities in my life.
Do you think it's easy to watch someone else on social media and think I should be like them?
Yeah.
and then you realize it's like you realize maybe a couple of months down the road, it's like, no, I shouldn't be like them at all, because it's no me. It's like just know how I am. And I know that because I've done it myself. I've done it off myself. I've actually thought, oh, they were really good at that. And it's like, you know, what was it? I can't mind the phrase. It's something like you'll always be disappointed if you keep trying to be like someone else, because you don't know the problems that they have. You only see the good things of what they have. A classic example of that is, I remember this story about the guy that was in the street and he saw this other guy drive up in this Ferrari, and he had this beautiful blonde woman next to him in the Ferrari. And he thought, wow, I would love to be like him. But what he didn't know is the Ferrari was about to be repossessed from the guy. And then the woman sitting next to him wasn't his girlfriend. You can guess what profession that she was in. And yet at that point in time, that guy thought, oh, I'd love to be like him. But he didn't know his situation. And that then comes back to saying, no, be who you are. The grass is not greener on the other side. That is a phrase I've always said. It's not greener on the other side at all. The grass is greener on your side. Just let it grow and let it happen. Acres of diamonds right in front of you every single time. Opportunities all around you. You don't need to run to the other ends of the earth to look for it.
Yeah,
I think it's like you say, Jim, not everything's always what it seems on the surface. And I think it's easy to think, oh, I want to be like them, but what you need to remember is, and we spoke about this last week, Jim, if you try too hard to be like somebody else, you're not being yourself. And what people don't realize, and even in business and things as well, people buy into the person. So be who you are and show them that person, and they'll in turn buy into that. And that's something that I even sometimes forget and need to remind myself as well, that people buy into me as a person, not just the business.
The thing I've always remembered, and before we move on to the next one, the one I always remember, and to for everybody else to remember out there, You could have the smallest brand in the world, but if everybody loves you, they'll go to you. You could have the biggest brand in the world, but if everybody doesn't like you, will not do business with you. Yeah. And that's probably key there. It comes down instrumentally and fundamentally to the person right in front of the mirror. That is the person who people will list with, who they'll do business with, who they'll associate with every single time. That brings me on nicely to the next one. Be money motivated. Now, anybody out there that says money is the root of all evil, it's not. It's the love of money. It's the root of all evil. Yeah. Just remember that before you spout that off again in the future. and so it's yes, you have to be money motivated, because guess what? Money is right up there with oxygen. You need it to do everything and anything. Try paying your electric bill with fresh air. That's not going to happen. Try and go and buy your next car with fresh air. Try and get your house on a mortgage with no money at all. Money, you have to be money motivated. You have to be in charge, or therefore you'll never actually succeed at anything if that's the case. So understanding money is the key and what to do with it, and understanding the fundamentals of possibly, we've talked about this before, Ben, about, getting an understanding of what a profit and loss account is and what a balance sheet is. Now, snooze fest springs to mind right here when I talk about that, because most people go, I'm not an accountant. You don't need to be an accountant. You can go on a business development course with Business Gateway for an afternoon, and they'll tell you exactly what these mean, what a balance sheet and a profit and loss account is. And it helps you immensely in understanding your numbers and understanding your money. What else would you add to that, Ben, in terms of being money motivated? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I heard a good phrase of it put perfectly, that service comes first, but second comes money. And I think that's a good order through, I think it was The Go Giver by Bob Burg. And it talked about how service, that act of like wanting to serve and to give value to people, because money is an exchange of value. Yeah. So when you think in terms of service and value first, but also be receiving when it comes back to you. So it's like karma. What you put out, you get back. So that is what money is all about. But then you have to be good at the receiving part. But you get the giving comes first, and then that comes back like a boomerang. So I think being money motivated is just being clever enough and smart enough to know when the opportunities come back to you and how to capture it in the biggest net possible. And I think that's really important. Just to that way of putting it made me realize just recently that the service always comes first, and but being money motivated is also very important. Or you'll put that out, you'll give, but if you don't eventually receive, you're then struggling because you're just a giver. So you've got to be able to not take but receive.
I think that's a good point, Ben.
That's a really good point. Richard, what's your thoughts on this? I mean, we talk about this all the time, Richard, don't we? It's all about the service, and the money is incidental.
The money will follow.
Money's a byproduct of what we do extremely well. That's no doubt about that. And whereas other people go in with the mindset about the money is first, and then the service is second. But we find that it works the other way around better, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's what was that's basically what you were saying there, Ben, and like I say, Jim and I have spoken about that a few times, and it's very much kind of how we try and operate things. It's obviously when you're providing a service and doing things at the best level that you can, and at the highest quality you can, the money will follow. So concentrate on what you're putting out there and how you're putting it out there, and then naturally people will gravitate to you, and then the money will follow.
A good example of
that. Setting out with the money as your main objective.
Yeah, a good example of that I have is in property. When I can find a good deal, and if I don't want to buy it myself for deal sourcing, the money will appear because I've found something of value to a property investor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the money does come when you've got something of value.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think if you're like you say, if you're providing something for someone and you're doing a good job, well, you're doing it, then you've got that whole job satisfaction and self-gratification and things, as well as the money as at the end as well.
Yeah. I think you need to have both. Like you need to be good at giving and good at receiving.
Yeah.
This is actually quite important as well. This brings me to the next one then, is stop being average. It's like nobody, you get nothing for being average. It's amazing how many it's amazing how many, when you think about it, right, you know, our average is someone else from a country, maybe a third world country. It's their huge, it's their result. It's what they want in life. They just want to be average. But we in this country can't afford to be average because average doesn't get you any further and it doesn't pay the bills. So being average, I mean, there is 4 levels to take action. It's actually to do nothing, to retreat, and then it's being average, and then also it's a massive level as well. It's all these different things that combine that. I mean, what's your initial thoughts on this, Richard, when I say about stop being average?
Yeah, I think I watched a training video and things that spoke about this, and it's amazing how much is categorized as like the average, the average level, and then it's just to push that wee bit further, and then hit that massive level, and then that's when things change. There's a lot of people in business and things that go about day to day and just do it average and just tick by.
Yeah, I mean, you get something I want to be average.
Yeah. And people are, and a lot of people are happy to do that, and that's fine. If people want to, you know what I mean, just do their job and be the average Joe, then that's fine.
Why do you think that is then? What is that mindset behind that? People compromise and settle.
Well, it's like, I don't know what to bring up again, but the flea in the jar thing, because they've been trained to do that, or it's been obviously passed on to them from whether it be their parents or whatever.
Let's cover this again.
And they're happy to be at that level.
Let's cover this again then, because it's important we get this message across every single time. Because remember, we're a different audience every single time listening to us. And we've talked about it in Ben's podcast as well. We've talked about it in successful shows. But this is the flea in the jar. This is what happens to us. Essentially, this is how I see it. You've got a flea in a jar. A flea can jump 36 inches. We all know that it can jump 36 inches because we've seen it. If we've got pets, you've got fleas at some point in time. And you see them, they jump a huge height. But you can train a flea, and this is what they do in circuses. They train the flea to jump only so high. They put the flea in the jar, 5 inches, they put the lid on the top, and the flea starts to jump. So the flea starts to jump, and after a while, the flea goes, flipping heck, I'm getting a sore head at this point in time. And it goes, I'm needing to just jump just under that 5 inches. So it learns to jump just a micromillimeter so it doesn't hit the top of the jar, the lid. So it learns to do that, and it jumps 5 inches all the time. Mummy flea comes along. She does exactly the same thing because she's stuck in this jar. And I say stuck in this jar. That's what sometimes happens. Remember, stuck in the jar. I could see this analogy with myself, to be honest, in the early days. Mummy and daddy flea have baby flea. Baby flea can jump 36 inches. Baby flea sees mummy and daddy jumping 5 inches. So baby flea goes through its whole life thinking that mummy and daddy in itself can only jump 5 inches. Baby flea has no idea it's been conditioned like that because of its environment and surroundings round about them. Now, is that not what I was like at school and when I left school? Absolutely. That's exactly how I was trained. I was stuck in a jar and a lid was put on me and I was not told, and this is, you know, I'm not caring if my teachers are watching, you deserve everything you get. But I was stuck in a jar and a lid was put on top of me and that was me. I remember you can't be in that class because that's for the people that excel in that subject, so you need to go into a lower class. That is putting a lid on the jar because it fits their purpose and not yours. That's how I look at it. And that's how people end up sometimes being average when in actual fact, everybody can jump 36 inches. Ben, what is your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with everything you've said. School and the sort of the system is what keeps people sort of thinking all the same. And if we're all going through the same system, which is school and the media, and we're in that environment, then we all talk the same, we all believe the same because it's what we're made to believe. So that's why, like, again, going back to mindset, why reprogramming your brain, your mind to think differently, because if that's hardwired in your mind, then that's that's going to be 80% of your automatic actions and what your belief system is. So the key is to change your belief system out of that so that we can, like you're saying, jump out of that hypothetical jar and be different. So that, at being average is that like what the environment that you're stuck in, the belief system that you're set with, and to change that.
The system, ultimately, how I see it, and you know, hey, mums and dads and everybody out there, you're not going to like what I'm about to say, but the whole system designed to produce good worker ants, compliant people that will fall into the system and work to their. This is probably what you say about the Matrix, Ben. this is exactly what it's like. And do you take the red or the blue pill? Well, I'll take the one that will release me every single day. So this comes back then to quickly jump onto this. Then it's about growing your money from here. It's about growing your money. So it's about having the self-development. It's about being who you are. It's about being motivated. It's about stop being average. You're better than that. And I'm talking to you. It's watching this right now. Yes, you. That's who I'm talking to. Stop being average. You have the mindset and the capability to be way beyond what you think. It's just that what you learned before has got you to this point in time. And you need to have to learn something new to move you further forward. And this brings me on to then. This fits in nicely to grow your own money. The 3 rules for growing your own money, Richard, are...
You've got to get it, not to make it.
Yep.
Don't lose it, convert it.
Yep.
And figure out how to multiply it. And everybody always says cash is king, cash flow is king.
Yeah, definitely. Cash flow is king.
I would agree with that.
The 3 rules for growing your money: you've got to get it, not make it. And that's it. This comes down to laws of attraction, Ben, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
So, and this comes back to what we say about, I mean, when you think about it, all that money's been printed. It's in the supply. It's in the system somewhere in the world. You don't magically just produce more money for you to get. What you have to do is work out a way to improve your skills and your self-development about everything we've just talked about beforehand in order to attract that money towards you. This is all about wealth creation when it comes down to it, and that's why it's so important to do that. So the 3 rules is you've got to get it, not make it. You don't go out and trade time for money. You do what you need to do, and you attract the people to you to pay you the right value and what you're really worth. What you're really worth, again, comes down to that comes down to stop being average. You're worth more than that. I'll give you Richard, would you give me 1 million right now for your right leg?
For my right leg, no.
Yeah, I'll give you 1 million for your right leg.
No.
What about 2 million for your arm?
No.
What about 3 million for your other arm?
No.
What about 5 million for your leg?
No.
Okay, so you've now instantly put a value in yourself of more than £10 million. But if I was to say to you in an advert, for example, how would you like to be paid £10 million? You would go, I'm maybe no suited for that job. That sounds familiar. Yeah?
Yeah, because I would think
people completely undervalue themselves, don't they? And it's all about tracking it. It's all about growing your money. So what's your thoughts on growing your money, Ben? I mean, how could we do this and how could we set about this?
Yeah, quite similar to what Richard said. That's when you talked about 3 ways. But I think it is about getting good, being able to earn money first, being able to actually put money in your bank account, and then to be able to keep it, and then to be able to make that money work for you. Through...
Do you go in the split of the, like 40% into your savings?
Yeah.
Live on 20%.
I follow the 6 jar system, which is on the book, The Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. So you put a part of all you earn is yours to keep. So you put 10%, or I put 12% away for a freedom fund.
Yep.
And that freedom fund will make me free one day, because it's a pot of money that I'll never take money back out.
Yeah.
And you use that pot of money to double it, and then double that again, and then double that, and eventually that money will create passive income that will free me. And that system. And then I've got a percentage will go to education. So I've always got money there to, there's a workshop I want to go to, I can invest in that. There's a book I want to buy,
that's a great point. Brilliant.
Because that holds a lot of people back. If they don't have that investment to invest in themselves, then they can never get ahead. So it's just having a percentage of your income going into things that will progress you, and investments in you, investments for buying businesses, property, and systems that can create income for you.
Some of these workshops cost a couple of £100, don't they, online, if you can do an online workshop. And sometimes a lot of them are actually really, really good as introductory. You've got to watch for obviously the upsell, which is actually getting you on a bigger course. But you can really, if you understand that mentality, you can take the good bits out of the couple of £100. Now, for anybody out there that says, I can't afford a couple of £100 for an online course or something you need to attend, think about this. If you needed your car for your work and your tire burst on your car for your work, what would you do? You get it fixed. So where did you find the money to get your tire fixed? See, people always have money for what they really think's important. They just don't put it as a major priority because they don't see the bigger picture of what they actually realise is they've got to put money aside. And that you're absolutely right, Ben. You've got a great point about the fact that, that 6 jars approach. Is there any other jars that you can mention and talk about?
Yeah, so you've got like your necessity jar.
Yep.
You've got your freedom fund, your education fund, necessity, which is like just living, paying the bills, paying for your food shop.
Yeah.
And then you've got your long-term sort of holiday for like events if you want to go away on holiday with your family. What's the other one?
So I took every other jar and put them into the actual investment.
Yeah,
I just had 2 jars more or less. My necessity, right? My absolutely bare minimum I could survive on, and everything else went into my property investments. That's all I thought about.
Yeah,
because I kind of saw the bigger picture. I sat with a spreadsheet and thought, if I put this in early enough and it'll compound, the quicker I get this in, the quicker I build it, the more money I make later on. And that's kind of how I thought about it.
That's it.
And that then comes down to discipline, doesn't it?
Yeah. And emotional intelligence. So that when it comes to a stressful point where you really want to dip into that freedom fund, but you don't do it because you're emotionally intelligent enough to go, no, I need to hold on to this money because that's my future freedom.
Yeah,
I don't not getting caught up in the moment.
How do you stick to that though? Do you make sure you've got goals you want to achieve then to actually keep you on track with that? Because it's easy. Because if you don't, I mean, the classic example is here's a nuts and bolts classic example. I'm going to stop drinking for you, my dear. And as soon as you fall out with, it's like you're back on the course, isn't it? Because it's like you've got to do it for yourself, isn't it? I mean, you laugh at that, Richard, but it's true. I mean, listen, I've done it in my youth. I've been, I'll stop drinking for you. And it's all the rest of it. It's like, all right, we're falling out, right? Where's the pub? And that's kind of how people think. They forget. So it's all about having a bigger goal, isn't it? And making sure you keep an eye on that all the time. And
remember that first question I asked you, woke you up with it on our podcast with the first question about the purpose. That was that's the core of it all. Like you're saying, it's about your own life purpose and your soul's life purpose, and making sure you know what you want to do with this lifetime that you've been given, and that being your sort of the bottom line motivation. And it's not motivation; it's different from motivation. It's more like a spiritual aspect than from motivation, because motivation comes and goes. Whereas a purpose is like, I must do this whether I feel like it or not.
Having deep down faith in yourself that what you're doing will lead to something greater.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps you on track, isn't it, Richard? It's the whole thing about having faith, even though it's not going right at this point in time. Having that higher purpose, like what Ben said, and having that faith that will happen if you keep on that track, and discipline yourself is probably the way forward, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it all comes back to obviously believing in yourself. And I think you talk about the 6 jars, Ben, and I think that's really good. Jim, you're obviously an exception to the rule because you only had 2 jars. But I think that's really good, and it is all about discipline. And I think in order to go through all that, you really need to have a a plan or an end goal where you want to be, and I think for myself as well, I don't know, maybe it's just a time in my life where I think a lot more about the future and where I'm going to be, and think right now is the time to start planning. Do you know what I mean?
Wait till you get to 50.
Well, I think. Do you know what? If you do it now, when I'm rather than wait till later down the line.
Do it now. Do it now. Oh my God. Do it now for anybody out there that's listening or tuning in. It's like, do it now. Just Nike it. Do it now. That's it. In a nutshell. Because what happens is it gets kicked into the long grass. You forget all about it and you think, I'll do it tomorrow, and then 10 years down the road, somebody else has done it and you think, oh God, I wish I'd done it. And it's like, and that's the classic example. That's what happens all the time. I've had loads of people come to me and say, well, if I'd started in property investment 30 years ago, yeah, you would. But you can start now. In 30 years' time, you'll be exactly the same position as I'm in now. We're doing what I did. There's no difference. It's just the level of expenditure is just different. The numbers are different, but it's the same mentality. It's the same process, and you'll still retire.
You can't speed up the process as well.
Yeah, and you've got to speed up the process because it is going back to about the self-development, and it's learning from people that have done it already in order to be quicker at it and actually learn by their mistakes. It's a great thing to learn by other people's mistakes. That's why it's important to read books from even people that have failed at points in their life, and even people that are successful in their life as well that have failed before, because their failures can lead to your success.
Yeah, definitely.
Unless you want to do the costly exercise of trying it out for yourself. I tell you what, I'm not going to take your wheel. I'm just going to reinvent it from the very beginning again. Oh, funny enough, 10 years later, you've got the exact same wheel as me. It's like, oh, right, okay. I maybe could have done that anyway. I maybe could have just used your wheel in the beginning. Couldn't have. Absolutely right. And you would have been 10 years ahead of it now. Now you've taken 10 years to even catch up to where I was 10 years ago. And I'm 10 years ahead of that now. What that one?
Yeah, I mean, I know obviously we talk about a lot about and these shows and things, Jim, about the things that you've done over the years, and you've tried it, you've tested it, you've failed at it, and this is how, I mean, a lot of what I do with lettings and property management and things, I've been lucky enough to learn through your mistakes. And there's a lot of stuff I do, and that's how I've always just done it, and I've never had to make the mistake because you've taught me this is how you do it. I've always done it. It doesn't work like that.
Thank goodness for that. At least I've taught somebody something. Anyway, the next one, one of the most important ones, and we talk about it all the time. We're British and we're very reserved at this. It's about getting attention. It's about getting attention, and I'll tell you a classic example of that. Who do you think are the biggest corporations on the planet? It's the ones that get the most attention. Apple. Yeah, Apple's not got the greatest products, have they? But I tell you what, they get the most attention, and that's why they're one of the biggest companies. Pepsi's maybe better than Coca-Cola, but Coca-Cola is the number one in the world.
Yeah.
But think about this. Iron Brew's number one in Scotland. Coca-Cola's second. So who do you think gets more attention in Scotland? It's Iron Brew, because most people talk about it all the time. And so it just shows you it's not the product, it's the amount of attention that you get. Massive action always works, and it's moving forward. So what's your thoughts on this, Richard, about when I say get attention, what do you think about?
I think when we speak about getting attention, I think and what we do, and I think it's being relevant and always being in front of people and demonstrating that you're knowledgeable in a certain aspect, or even just showing your own personal side and your views on things. And like I say, keeping yourself in the forefront of people's minds and things creates that attention, and in turn, you'll get business and things from that attention.
Yeah. What about yourself, Ben? Getting attention.
Getting attention, yeah. That's what we're doing here today. We're getting attention. Yeah. We're sharing across all our social medias and live streaming, and then we're going to distribute this everywhere. It's how people get to know us, and if people don't know who you are, then they can't buy from you. They can't. They don't understand what you do. So yeah, the first thing is to, like, in sales and making money and wealth, is getting attention. I agree.
And I think that exactly the same. It's often I'll walk into somebody's house and they thought, I feel like I know you already. And because it comes back to all these things about being yourself and about self-development, and getting attention as well. Now, I'm not naturally that type of person. I'm a very introverted person, and everybody will go, really? It's like, why I am. I'm very, very introverted. I know what I need to do to get attention in order to develop the business, in order to develop further. But I have to force myself. We talked about that on your show, Ben, where in the first 4 years, it spent me 4 years. It took me 4 years in the beginning actually to even step foot and actually to contact people, to speak to people, to develop a business. So it took me a lot of years. Even, I would argue, even before that as well, because even at 16 years old, I was developing businesses, but I wasn't actually taking them any further forward because I was terrified of what to do next. So I'm actually quite a very introverted person, but it's essential. If you've got to do something, you've got to get attention. I had a conversation with somebody else the other night. They were talking about me. Jim, do you want to come in with this property investment? And I was just off. And then me, but I tell you, is you need much property on all the. He actually said to them where it is, and he actually said, expect anybody to invest for your joint venture. If you're not, it's so sensitive. And he almost put his nose out. He was like just I told him what he needed to do. But it's essential that you have to do that. Getting attention, money will flow. The attention, it will not flow to anybody. It doesn't. If out of sight, out of mind is probably the expression I would say in that.
Yeah, it's the same going back to like average as well. Like if you're average, you really just like hide in with the crowd, and you have to kind of pop your head out of the crowd and wave and make sure people actually see you.
And you know what? And it's not being average. It's putting yourself out there and not being average.
Yeah.
Here's the phrase I was always taught when I was younger: if you stick your head above the parapet, you're going to get eggs thrown at you, and you've got to accept that's going to be the reality. It's the only way you're going to get seen. If you're in a crowd, look at the people that go up and you're in a crowd at Glastonbury and you're watching it on the television, and then all of a sudden somebody gets put on somebody else's shoulders and you go, oh, there's somebody there. I mean, that's exactly what we're doing here. It's all about getting attention. It's all about just, standing on the shoulders of giants. That's what I call it. All the people that have come before us, all the Jim Rowans, all these Brian Tracy, Richard Branson, and Steve Jobs, all these different people have led to success for other people that came after them. And my dad used to say, I always used to say to my dad, it's just as well you were born first. Because my dad was actually one of the ones that led me to, getting further attention. So thanks, Dad. It's just as well you were born first. So, number 7. Understanding how money works. How important is this, Ben?
Yeah, really important. Like, if you don't understand how money works, it kind of gets used against you. It's kind of goes with that emotional intelligence as well. Like, just knowing, not being attached to money, because when you know what it is, you have less attachment because you realize it's just this overprinted piece of paper. That's it's a good way to organize a society and keep things organized and have some type of control and order. But when you really understand what money is, and knowing that it's a way to control people and to sort of categorize people based on how much they have, it's really important to know how money works, because if you don't, you kind of become a slave of money rather than other way about.
Time for money, isn't it? You trade time for money, and the reality is, as soon as you trade time for money, then you're locked into a system where your time is the only thing you've got to exchange for money. But you can break out that system, and that comes back to the lid on the jar. Richard, what's your thoughts on the understanding how money works?
Yeah, I think understanding how money works is so important, and I think as the years go by, for myself, it's like you look at money in such a different way and how it can be implemented to make things work better for you and make your life better. I think a lot of people, as soon as they get money, everybody likes to go. A lot of people like to spend money, but what's the point in getting money, spend it, and then you've none left?
Here's a classic example. I want to be a millionaire. Okay, so what are you going to do with it when you're a millionaire? because you could be a millionaire if you want. You can have it in the bank, but it's no good sitting with £1 million in the bank if you're not going to do anything with it. So what do you actually want to do with it? That's understanding how money works, and also understanding how investing money and wealth creation. Now, wealth creation is not taxable. That's where your investments go up in value, and it's only taxable at the point where you realize it. In other words, you sell it for a property. So you can actually create wealth, and that's not taxable. Whereas understanding how money works from a point of view with trading time for money, that's when you create income, which is taxable. So there's two fundamental differences here, and that's understanding how money works for me. It's about understanding how wealth works and how that's created, but it's also understanding how income's generated as well, and how that's taxed, and how one could overlap with the other, or potentially the income could be converted to wealth creation in order to minimize your tax liability. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we want to do. Nobody wants to pay a lot of tax. Anybody that does, feel free to message us here, or feel free to say it in the comments here. But I don't think anybody out there would admit to themselves that they want to really pay more tax. I would love to help other people with the income I've got and the wealth I've created, but I'd like to choose where I put it. So that's understanding how money works, and the cash flow and the appreciation, and how that all fits in. And again, it all comes back to everything else we've done before. One of the most important things you have to do, though, is take action now. It's do it now. Taking action. How important is that, Richard?
Yeah, I think it's so important to. I know people have a fear of jumping in and doing things, and I'm not saying just jump into any deal or jump into a new property purchase without doing your proper due diligence and thinking about it and making sure numbers add up. But yes, it's the whole feel the fear and do it, and don't hold back, because you could lose out on things. And I think it's very important just to push forward and take action, but obviously do that with an educated, obviously, approach to it. Don't just be entering into deals and purchases of things for a buy-to-let portfolio without doing your proper research.
Well, everything we spoke about just now, Ben, what's your thoughts on this about taking action now? I mean, how is that right up there with oxygen? You need to do it if you want to be successful?
Yeah. I think you need to take fast action, and for every reason. Like I think of sales when I think about that as well. That when I leave an inquiry too long, they've already went on to the next person.
It's follow-up, isn't it? It's I remember reading a book from a guy, Peter Thomas. He was one of the biggest. He had the franchise for Century 21 in Canada. So he was worth millions. This guy had built 800 offices throughout Canada. But I remember reading that book, and he actually talked about that. He talked about the fact that you have to take action. And he said in the book, he actually said, do you know how most people don't get the business? It's because they don't actually follow up. They do their pitch, and then they go away and they go, see you later, phone me when you're ready. It's like, and that's the end, that's the last that they hear of them. And it's like, what, are you phoning back? Are you following up with me? Is there no next steps or anything like that? Because the person at the other end you're talking to doesn't know the next steps. They don't know what you know. So it is that, and it does come back now, doesn't it, Ben?
Yeah, and as longer you leave that sort of gap between like the initial contact and the sale, the more like sort of fear builds up, and it's like all the thoughts that turn them off it. So
that's
taking
the mental
action.
monsters. Aye, that's the mental monsters that come into play, isn't it? It's what if they say this and what if they say that? It's flipping heck. Lift up the phone and phone them, and then you'll find out what they're really thinking.
Yeah, it's and the same happens for you and I as well. Like in our own day to day, like the more time we think about it, the more we put ourselves off actually doing it. So you have to get that balance of like what Richard was saying about the due diligence and also fast action. It's a fine balance.
Here's a classic, Richard. This is what happens sometimes. This is what's happened. It's like, better no phone. Oh, better because it might be on. Oh, better no phone. They might be back. Oh, they might be. Oh, home having their tea after hours, and then it's they might be watching the telly now. And it's like by the time it finishes, it's like, oh well, we're too late. I'll phone them tomorrow.
Yeah.
I tell you what, you know that. I've done it loads before.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think also you find if you do the follow-up with them and then you're there and giving them that guidance and I mean, a lot of the time people look for that kind of hold my hand, show me how to do it thing. If you do that, then they'll buy into you and you'll get the business.
Yeah.
And if you're offering people a service, like what Jim was saying there about phoning them at 10 at night, if you're offering them a valuable service and you phone someone at 10 at night, sometimes they're delighted that you've phoned them.
Yeah.
Because they're getting because what you're giving them is value, I've found.
Yeah. Look at it. I remember when I was marketing, now it's all about experience with other people, and by sharing you could never lose. If anybody else got involved, then you would benefit as well, and they would benefit as well. So it was almost like I was told it was like having a gold bar, and you're giving someone else a gold bar, and you're not losing your gold bar. You're actually still got yours, and so why would you not phone them later on in the evening?
Yeah,
it's like, could you imagine how annoyed someone would be as if you didn't phone them and 10 years later you said, oh, I didn't think you were interested. It's like, I didn't realize. It's like, oh my God, you're joking. Look at all these people that have gone before me. You did phone and actually built that huge portfolio or got involved in that business opportunity. They made an absolute fortune and you didn't even bother telling me about it. Thanks very much, friend. So that takes me nicely to the invest in people as the ninth one for me. Definitely invest in people. How important is it to invest in people, Richard?
Yeah, I mean, people, for what I do on a daily basis, people are such a big part of that. And investing my time into them is the most important thing, because it helps you build relationship and obviously build that rapport, and in turn business follows, money follows. So it's so important to invest in people and individuals.
That kind of comes back into follow-up, Ben, doesn't it?
Yeah. Investing into relationships and connecting with people. So you're investing in other people. It's almost like houses where you get equity. So you build equity in the relationship and with others, and sort of like karma points.
That's a bit of good analogy.
Yeah. So the more you invest in others, the more you get back, like what we were talking about at the beginning.
Yeah. I kind of think as well as, and when I think about investing in people, I think about a power team. I think about people that are really good at what they do. Now, Branson actually talks about this quite a lot, about the fact that he was basically illiterate, and he didn't know much, and he didn't know anything really. But what he was really good at is finding people far more skillful at him in areas and actually just employing them and work with him as a power team. And I think that's ideally what you want. You want people to work with you. Hence the reason why you go out there and joint venture with other people and you network with other people to find the people that actually align with you and your power team in order for your mastermind group to grow bigger. That's why people have mastermind groups, Ben, as well, isn't it?
Yeah. And what you're saying about Richard Branson, I can relate to Richard Branson. I'm dyslexic myself. Yeah. So I find like I have a lot of weak areas, but that's actually forced me, like most entrepreneurs that are dyslexic, they leverage that actually to their benefit.
Yeah.
Because other people.
Here's a really good one when you talk about that, just to jump off that a wee bit. Usually the most disruptive children in school go on to be self-employed and run their own businesses. And you usually find that. And the reason for that is because they don't have, it's almost like they don't have any other way. So it's like nobody will employ them because they're like that and they think like that. But what you don't realize as an employer is that's probably the most important person you could ever employ in your business, because they don't come with these preconceived ideas and programming what has been done in the system prior to where they arrive to at your doorstep right now. That is the perfect example of investing in people, and then you can shape and mold them to what you want them to do for your system. Hence the reason why most estate agents actually, who are good in our business, weren't estate agents in the first place. They were really good at something else and they excelled in something else somewhere else. So corporate world was Perry. Jimmy Mullen was golf. He was a professional golfer on the circuit at one point, sponsored by Ping. Richard, yourself, you were in a completely different environment as well. So you trained in order that's molded and shaped over the years and invested in people. That's how I see it, and that's how I build it. the last one here, and I think everybody's going to agree with this one, but it is actually about starting small and thinking big, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think even like JCC, obviously, like my own journey, like where I started and where I am now, how things have progressed, and I think everybody has to start somewhere when they do things. But think about where you want to be, and do you know what? And we spoke about this before, Jim. Think about where you want to be, and think further than that. Do you know what I mean? Aim further than that.
Mm-hmm.
Matthew McConaughey talks about it quite well. He says about, his I think it's his mentors or his peers. He says, well, I don't really have any peers, but the peer that I've got, or the person I would look up to, is actually me in 10 years' time. It's someone I want to aspire to. That's the person I want to be, and that's the person I look up to, and that's the person I follow, because that is where I want to be in 10 years' time. And I kind of think that's and when I first started, small, absolutely. Every single person that started out being born. Put it in that context. Mm-hmm. Everything else they knew. And now I think it's fear of loud noises and heights are two inherent things and actually inbuilt into us in our nature when we're born. Everything else in our psyche is actually acquired from our surroundings round about us. So what does that tell you about how people excel way beyond that and how some people don't? And it is about, you maybe might be small right now, but you've got to have what Perry said is faith it until you make it. It's not fake it until you make it, because I used to be a bandit about all the time. It's actually having faith in yourself until you actually make it, and understanding you have the belief in yourself to think that there's better things to come. We talked about this, Ben, hadn't we? It's like I've got I'm convinced. Even though I'm where I am right now, and everybody goes, oh my God, I'd love to be where you are. And it's like, I'm convinced I've got better things to come over and above that. And I've got complete faith in that. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a similar, we like quotes here. So I think it was Tony Robbins said, be confident before you're competent. And that really stuck with me and sort of my own journey and where I was when I heard that. So yeah, it's just making sure like you keep that eye on the vision of where you want to end up, or what one of the people I've learned from, Ryan, he taught me a lot about the unconscious mind and the life, how to follow our life purpose and our visions. Is the vision already exists. We just have to evolve as people for that reality to come to fruition, like manifestation. And it's so whatever that vision and insight is, when you're not in your sort of scarcity, small thinking self, when you're in that higher, bigger self, and you think in that higher perspective, and you see that, though, you see, or you think about those sort of bigger visions and where you want to be in life. They already exist, because scientifically, and what's it called? I forgot the name of it. In the universe, there's actually, when you have a thought, it comes into the ether. There's scientifically shown that when you have a thought, it comes into reality. So that's because you've just turned something from nothing into something, and then it's just your job to go through the process of making it making it come true, and just understanding that these insights, these visions, and these thoughts, these big, huge things that overwhelm you and scare you, they are real. We just have to go through maybe a lot of hard work to make it happen. That's
there can be no victory without a struggle. Richard, what's your thoughts on this quickly? And starting small and thinking big.
Starting small and thinking big. I think, like you say, everybody has to start somewhere. I think it's just so important to start off believing in yourself, trust in yourself, believe that you could be above average, better than average. Don't just settle for average. And I think in order to do that, like we've spoke about today, surround yourself with the right people, and believe that you can strive to be more.
And I'll finish off on two comments here, right here. Karen actually says it perfectly well. It's never too soon to start.
Yep.
And then Jeanette actually says as well, just listen to all the free advice and experience from Jim. Thanks very much for that, Jeanette. I really appreciate that, guys. And until next week's Wealth Creation Show, it's goodbye from us. Goodbye, guys.